What's cracking, audio fans? It's David here from Prime Audio Reviews, and today I'm looking at the FiiO FH1s. Welcome to another review. Alright, so here's the box. Pretty nice looking box. Nothing out of the ordinary. So the FH1s is priced at around $69. This is a dual driver IEM with one dynamic driver and one balanced armature driver, and comes with this very nice FiiO plastic carrying case, which is a nice bonus. And in addition, it comes with this lovely 2-pin monocrystalline Litz copper cable, and this is actually a really nice cable. It reminds me a lot of the Dunu cables. So you've got your right angled plug there, little Velcro cable tie, pretty simple aluminium Y split with a matching aluminium chin slider, slightly angled 2-pin connectors, but the angle is not too aggressive, so they work well for my larger ears. One thing I don't like about this cable is the sort of aggressive curve from the preformed ear guides. It just means that the cable can be a bit of a tangly bitch sometimes, but for the most part, yeah, it's a really nice cable. So considering the price of $69, this quality of this cable and the case, we're already off to a pretty good start. Here's a look at the earpieces now. Nice purple color. They come in two colors, the purple and black. And what's interesting, or one interesting feature about these is the faceplates, which are made of celluloid. And one cool thing about the layered celluloid faceplate, according to FiiO, they're all unique, 100% unique, so that's pretty cool. You can see the dynamic driver there, the large 13.6mm dynamic driver. And the shells themselves, really nice and smooth overall. The build quality is fantastic. They are fairly wide, so they do, and that combined with the longish nozzles means they do protrude out from your ears a bit. Depending on your ears, they might stick out a bit because they're quite large that way. It's a nice looking shell. So far we're still looking really good for this bundle here, 69 bucks. Another cool thing about the celluloid faceplates, the celluloid material is known to have great acoustic performance, and it's still widely used today in the manufacturing of certain instruments, in particular accordions and guitars. So that's pretty sweet. Okay, moving on to the sound. I will pop the graph up here. The overall sound signature, well, the frequency response of the FH1s is very linear across the board. It's almost unheard of for something in this price range. The only other thing that comes to mind would be the tin HiFi T2. So very linear across the spectrum, except for that one pretty large peak at around 8 kilohertz. Now I know for a fact that my measurement rig does add has a bit of a resonance at the 8 kilohertz mark, but despite that, there is still a significant, a pretty large peak at around 8 kilohertz. We'll get to that later. Let's talk about the bass a little bit. Despite having such a large dynamic driver, 13.6mm, that's a pretty big driver. The bass is not really accentuated at all. It is a little bit north of neutral, so it is boosted a little bit, but most of that boost is in the sub bass, so the very low bass region. This gives the sound, the bass, a nice authority. It feels very powerful and strong. And then when you it transitions linearly into the mid bass, but the mid bass does not seem as accentuated. And I really like this combination because you get that nice powerful weighted bass, but it does not feel boomy or bloated at all. It's very well controlled. Some nice texture there, some nice impact, and a good amount of slam. So it's a fairly quick bass as well. And overall, it's just really good quality. Quite unusual for a budget in-ear monitor like this. And I think that's largely to do with the size of this driver. The bass sounds really effortless. It doesn't have to work all that hard to move the air because it's such a big driver. Now moving on to the mid-range. The mid-range is nice and smooth. There's a little bit of warmth that's carried over from the upper bass, but overall the mid-range is quite neutral, and on some occasions it might even sound a little bit on the thin side. But the transients, you'll just have to excuse those noisy birds outside. There's nothing I can do about that at the moment. So the mid-range, where was I? So one thing I noticed about the mid-range is that it has very good resolution and detail. So that means you hear all the separate elements of the mid-range band, all the different instruments and whatnot. They're well separated, like each sounds like a separate instrument, a separate entity, rather than all being blended and melded together. And that's quite unusual for a budget IEM like this. Vocals sound very articulated, very nice and clear, but again, just a little on the thin side. Occasionally, some female vocals might sound a little bit raspy, and that's because of the peak in the treble, which I'll get to in a moment. But overall, the mid-range is quite impressive. Now, getting onto that treble, it's a light and airy and crisp treble, which is really good for improving detail retrieval. There's quite a good amount of micro details present in the music, and yeah, it opens up the sound stage, makes the sound nice and airy and light. Good bit of energy there as well. Occasionally that peak, and there's a couple of peaks in the higher treble as well, but particularly that 8 kilohertz one can be a little bit sharp on occasion. It doesn't happen very often though. It's similar to the KB-ear KB04 that I reviewed just recently, which also has a bit of a peak in the treble, but it's one that doesn't pop up very often. So really it's not a problem, especially for something in this price range. Now, as for the soundstage, it's moderate in size. It has a little bit, slightly more width than depth, and as it go forward in depth, it narrows quite significantly, quite quickly. So it ends up being a little bit narrow at the front. And as I mentioned, the instrument separation is very good. The imaging, so being able to pinpoint the location of various sounds within the soundstage is about average. It's not great, it's not terrible. I would have expected slightly better imaging, just based on the overall tonality and the instrument separation, but I found it to be just average. As for caveats, there's only really that one, which is the peak in the treble, but like I said, it's very seldom that it pops up. It's really not a problem. So that about sums up the sound of the FH1s. Now, for a quick comparison with the KB-ear Diamond. The Diamond also has a very nice cable. It's a little bit floppy, but it feels great, handles nicely. Now, the Diamond here has a more V-shaped signature, which means the bass and the treble are more boosted. In particular, the bass is more boosted. It's significantly more forward than on the FiiO unit. But it's also a fairly quick bass, similar speed to the FH1s, and it sounds really nice overall. It does make the overall tonality of the Diamond warmer than the FiiO, and I think to my ears it does sound slightly more natural. The mid-range is a little bit more recessed on the Diamond here, not so much so, but similar levels of clarity and just a little bit of extra body in vocals, which sounds a little bit more natural but might not be quite as resolving or detailed. In terms of treble, the Diamond here concentrates more on the lower treble, but it also has good extension, so the end result is one that is almost as detailed, but it doesn't have any of the occasional sharpness that the FH1s displays. So it's a little bit smoother overall, but both of these are fantastic. If you want to go for something slightly more hi-fi sounding, I would go with the FiiO. Something that's a little bit warmer and a little bit more natural with fantastic timbre, natural timbre, the Diamond is the one for you. And they're both around almost exactly the same price, so either way you're winning with these. They are both in my top 5 sub $100 earphones list. So overall, what do I think about the FiiO FH1s? Well, I think you're getting a really good deal with this one, and if you're looking to get into something a bit hi-fi, this is a great way to go, particularly if you want to avoid that sort of typical boosted bass. If you're looking for something with a more mature bass tuning, these are great for that. So in conclusion, I think the FiiO FH1s is a really good deal. You've got these really nice shells, great build quality and comfort, nice hi-fi sound, you get the excellent cable and the carrying case. So yeah, a really good deal. Have you heard these yet? Let me know in the comments below, and if you have heard these and the KB Ear Diamond, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how they compare. So that's it for this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, Parfam audiophile style, and if you want to see more videos like this in the future, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and until next time, I'll see you later.